This video is brought to you by the Media Club of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. This video will be addressing the signs, causes, effects, and prevention methods for depression.
What do you think is depression?
Honestly, I think it is a mood of anxiety. A person really get in a mood that's not too healthy for their mental being, and I think there's different phases of depression. It's just a mood that has a negative mental effect on the mind.
It's probably because of personal problems at home. Everyone goes through their own trials. You check it. But I like the fact that they're depressed. I think they should get some help from someone.
I believe that depression is when someone has been emotionally or physically attacked by a situation, and it tends to take a toll on their mental stability.
I just think that depression is really your state of mind at the moment, or been going on for a while, and it really puts you in a state where you don't really focus on much in your environment.
Like they have been said, it is your state of mind, and it can be due to many factors, mostly environmental factors.
I'm a psychotherapist and counselor. I am one of the school counselors at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College.
Okay, I'll get started with it right away. What is depression in your opinion? Or how would you define it?
Depression is a mental disorder, and what that means is that it affects either our thoughts, our behavior, or our emotions. And in particular, depression is a disorder in which there is predominantly sad mood, or sad, irritable, or empty feelings for extended periods of time.
And what would you say are the causes of depression?
There are a lot of risk factors. We don't really think of them as causes per se. It's because it's very hard to pin down exactly, what the cause of a particular depressive episode are. But we tend to look at the things that make it more likely that people will have depression.
How would you say, what is depression in students?
Okay, so the primary risk factors for students are like relationship issues with friends, love relationships, family relationships. So difficulties in relating to people are often a big factor for students around that age. Also, they may have other more serious issues like financial issues, abuse. Sometimes sexual abuse can be a factor for them as well.
Okay, and what are the different types of
Depression. We generally think of the major depression where you have to have depressive symptoms for every day for at least 2 weeks at a time, most of the day, every day. And so somebody who has that at least 2 weeks minimum with other symptoms like difficulties eating, sleeping, feeling worthless, feeling inappropriately guilty, etc., we would generally consider them to have symptoms of a major depressive episode. People can also have long-lasting depression, which is dysthymia. It can last for a year in adolescents minimum, or up to for 2 years in adults, and is where the depression is kind of milder, so to speak, but it lasts over a longer period of time. So it's present most of the time, for at least a year or 2 years. So you also have the premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which primarily affects girls, and it's the presence of irritable and depressive symptoms just prior to the onset of menses for women. Yeah? So sometimes that usually passes just as the menses happen. So for many women, they have bouts of depression, irritability, and other feelings of depression around that time.
And what are the effects of depression on students?
The effect, well, the primary thing we'd see in the school setting is difficulty concentrating on school, so it's quite hard to focus on work. It's hard to feel settled, I think, in school. They may have difficulty in relationships with other people as well as a result, because one of the things with depression is that a student might withdraw, which further impacts on the social relationships. So their friends might find it odd, they're not being around as much as they used to, they're not doing the things they used to. Their performance at school might go down as well. They might withdraw from things, clubs or activities that they would do before as well, which again further exacerbates the depression.
Also, like another question, like sort of obstacles, like certain drugs, like prescription drugs, can certain drugs like that cause things like depression?
Certainly, you can have medication-induced depression, for sure. Certain drugs, mostly, it's not a common presenting one in students, but certainly it is a risk factor for certain depressive episodes.
What can be done to fight against or avoid depression?
I think primarily one of the key things is to look after our mental health. I think a lot of emphasis is placed on physical well-being, which is fair, which is also important, but I think it's spreading the message to students that we have physical health and we have mental health, and we have to look after both of them. They're both important and they both impact on each other. So ways that in which we can look after our mental health would be talking things out, you know, being with others, sharing, spending time with people we love, you know, volunteering, eating well and exercising as well is very good for physical and mental health. Also, we can look at asking for help. You know, if there is a problem and you realize something is not quite right, or you don't feel right within yourself, or you notice your mood has changed, you know, there are resources available even at the college, free of charge, to help with anybody who needs to get that kind of support.
Do you think that certain people self-diagnose themselves as depressed? Yeah,
and for sure, I think with the advent of information, which is available at our fingertips, I think people across health, physical and mental health, have noticed that many clients come in, they've read, they Googled up something or their symptoms, and they come sometimes with a pre-existing diagnosis in their mind. Sometimes they may be on and they know something is wrong and they may be right, and sometimes they're quite far from what may be actually happening for them. I think information is good, but we also have to be careful about how we use that, especially in terms of diagnosing any health condition, whether it's mental or physical health. So I would always encourage students, if you think there is a problem, come and speak to someone who can really help you to figure out what's going on, do an assessment, and make the appropriate referrals.
How would you differentiate between the self-diagnosed and diagnosed?
It's an interesting question because I'm not sure. It's self-inflicted. I mean, what I can say is that there are certain attitudes that we can have that would make us more likely to have depressive episodes. For example, people who are perfectionists, people who have overly high standards, people who have pressures from their family and friends to achieve a certain goal or to maintain a certain standard. These kinds of attitudes can make it harder for you and can more likely put someone at risk. Now, when you talk about environmentally influenced depressions, for example, something could happen, right? You could have a major disaster that affects your home, living, etc. That might be something that can also cause or trigger depressive symptoms. They're both valid. They're both valid. All of these are risk factors, and we have to, if somebody's presenting with symptoms, I think the most important thing is that they get the necessary help. Whatever the trigger or the risk factor may be that contributed to the condition.
Not on the thing, but like the people who self-diagnose themselves as depressed, is it for attention mainly, or is it would it be, are they actually being real? How would you know?
I mean, for me, when someone comes to me, I hear what they have said. Like if they come in and they think they're depressed, I keep that in mind, but I also carry out my own assessment. As a professional in the area, I would be looking for certain things to help me to determine if they do actually meet the criteria for that. Yeah. But the thing again, like I said, if somebody thinks they're depressed or there's something wrong, then they're probably right that something is wrong. They may not always know exactly what it is, but maybe they are right that something is wrong for them. And to me, that's most important, if they can get some help, some support to figure out what's the problem and try to get them the right help.
Have you encountered any cases like that where people come to you and say, I think I'm depressed, and how many of them do you find are actually they actually are depressed, and how many of them has there been any cases where it's just all in their head kind of?
I mean, I would say more than 50% for sure who come feeling very depressed, down, with irritable or sad mood are generally depressed. Yeah, I don't know that people go around like a luxury label, I'm depressed, because it's actually something that's quite stigmatized.
Yeah.
For the most part, I should say more often than not, people are not wanting to be with a mental health problem. They're not looking to have that stigma attached to them. So if someone is talking about it, I would think that there must be something going on for them. Because of the level of stigma attached to depression and other mental health conditions.